Hello, this is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. And I'm here with you today to talk more about Descartes. We're in a course here at the Christ School of Theology called Faith, Knowledge, and Reason. And this course deals with some of the philosophical presuppositions of theology. Of course, Descartes is very important to the development of what we might say modern and postmodern theology. So we're examining some of Descartes' strictly philosophical work here. Prior to 1629, for Descartes, mathematics seemed to be the ideal about how knowledge is acquired. You've heard of the Cartesian coordinate system. That comes from Descartes, right? So he's the father of analytical geometry. Accordingly, in 1629 and before, he seemed to think that physics, that you could have certain knowledge about physics. But after 1629, it seems that his metaphysical questions became primary for Descartes. And he becomes skeptical of knowledge claims in both mathematics and physics. He now asks himself, well, how do I know that what seems to be so in mathematics or what seems to be so in physics really is so? And when we get to the Meditations, we're going to see how he has a method of doubt, of course, that calls everything into question. And he employs this pretty ruthlessly, right, in the Meditations with some very surprising results. Meditations come from around 1641, right? Meditations. And I guess with the Meditations, I've read them a number of times, and of course generations of college students have read these. I'm not sure many college students any longer can really understand them deeply, but at one point college students could and did. He asked this question in the first meditation. Whatever I have up till now accepted as most true, I have acquired either from the senses or through the senses. Now I say he asks this question because he's asking the question of whether what he's received through the senses and the knowledge he thinks he's acquired through the senses really is true knowledge. Is it really veridical? Does this so-called knowledge track with truth? And in the Meditations, particularly in the first meditation, he asks himself, he says, well, I have often been deceived by my senses. How do I know that I'm not deceived by my senses now? So he employs this first argument, which we might call the errors argument, to cast doubt upon whether or not what he has assumed to be so and what he has thought to be so really is so. He says, I've often been deceived by my senses, and so maybe I'm always deceived by my senses, right? Now, of course, what Descartes is trying to do is Descartes trying to get to absolute certain knowledge, right? He wants to attain certainty in his knowledge claims. He says, well, up until now, some of the things I've thought to be true are true. Some of the things I've thought to be true that I've gotten through the senses aren't true. So how do I know that what I think to be true is true? And of course, Descartes says, you know, in order to go after certainty, I could look at every one of my beliefs and I could subject it to doubt, and then I could try to build upon the grounds of that doubt, on the ruins of that doubt, right? I could try to find a foundation of truth, ground truth, find truth. But he says this would be very, very difficult to do because I'd have to take every one of my beliefs and doubt it. So he opts for a different method here. He says, well, what if I look at the foundations of my belief. And I hold those foundations open as an open question, whether or not those things actually obtain. For instance, one of the foundations of the belief that I have is there's an external world. But there is a world around me, right? Well, instead of questioning each fact, putative fact about me, about the so-called external world, what if I ask the more general question? How do I know there even is one? After all, I could be dreaming, right? And I don't know about you, but I've had some pretty vivid dreams. And I've had dreams where I'm dreaming and all of a sudden I wake up and, I realize that I was dreaming. Then I had a dream once where I was dreaming and then I woke up and then things still seemed kind of odd. So I realized after I woke up again that my first waking up was still in a dream, right? And I can remember one time when that happened twice. I was dreaming, I woke up, but that was still a dream. And then I woke up again from that dream, but that was still a dream, and then I finally woke up. So I was kind of 3 dreams in. How do I know that it's not all a dream? Right? So he goes out and he sits by himself, a little cabin, let's say, a little room. He's sitting by himself. He's got his little stove over there. And he's saying, what if it's all a dream? And then he thinks, well, even if it's all a dream, it would still seem like the general truths of mathematics hold, the general truths of geometry. I've never had a dream where a triangle had 4 sides, right? Some of you might have had a dream where the square root of 2 is rational. I hope no one's ever had such a highness dream of that. But I mean, even in my dreams, it seems like the laws of logic hold. So while that's a pretty pervasive doubt, maybe it's all of a dream, it still seems it's not deep enough, because even on the assumption that it's all a dream, it still seems to me like there are certain truths that are known. So he gives us then the next kind of more deeper methodological doubt. What if everything I think has been implanted in me by an evil demon or an evil genius that is systematically implanted in me beliefs that are false, so that I believe that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, but actually it's equal to 5, or I believe that the square root of 2 is irrational, but it's actually rational. I mean, after all, it could be the case that an evil genius is at work systematically deceiving me in all of my thinking. Now, if that's the case, I've reached the point of kind of an absolute doubt, right? This is kind of the worst case scenario you can assume. Everything I've ever thought before is incorrect. And it's, you know what? There's a possible world in which this obtains, right? Now, it's probably not so that there's a actual evil genius doing this, but it's possibly so. True knowledge, according to Descartes, has to be certain. That is, it has to hold in all possible worlds. Right? So, I have to qualify that, but just hold on to that for a moment. So what Descartes is saying here is that on kind of a worst case scenario where I'm systematically deceived, is there anything that I know for sure? Is there any indubitum? Is there any bedrock bit of knowledge that I cannot be wrong about? Any incorrigible, necessary bit of knowledge? Even on a worst case scenario, can I find something that is true, that I know for sure to be true? And he says, if I can find that, perhaps I've found the sure foundation upon which all other knowledge claims can be based. Okay? Now, the thing to see here is that the theological tradition before, if you remember these guys, of course, they're always talking about God. This question of sort of deep skeptical question, this deep doubt, isn't part of the way that, Thomas Aquinas or Peter Abelard or even William of Ockham proceed. more like Occam than the rest, but this is something new. I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. We'll be right back with more on Descartes. Thank you.